For thousands of years, the great empires of India all looked in the same direction. Inland. Toward land, rivers, and mountains. But 1,000 years ago, one dynasty turned the other way and looked at the ocean. They built a navy. They ruled the sea. And then they did something no Indian empire had ever dared. They crossed it to conquer. They were called the Cholas, a Tamil dynasty from the far south of India. And at their height, they dominated the Bay of Bengal so completely that historians sometimes call it, simply, the Chola Lake. So how did a kingdom of temples and rice fields become a naval superpower? How did they build a mountain of granite that still stands after 1,000 years? Why did they send a fleet 1,000 miles across the sea to attack Indonesia? And how did they invent a kind of democracy in a village? It begins in the fertile heart of the Tamil South, along the river Kaveri. For centuries the Cholas were just one power among many. Then, around the year 985, a king took the throne who would change everything. His name was Rajaraja, the king of kings. Rajaraja was a conqueror. He swept across southern India, into Sri Lanka, along the coast of Kerala, and even out to the islands of the Maldives. But conquest was only half of his ambition. He wanted to build something that would declare his power to the gods themselves. In his capital of Tanjavur, Rajaraja raised a temple unlike anything the world had seen. The Brihadisvara. Built entirely of granite, a stone so hard it is brutally difficult to carve, in a land where granite doesn't naturally occur nearby. Every block had to be hauled from far away. Its central tower rises over 60 meters, as tall as a 20-story building, and it was one of the tallest structures in the world when it was finished, around the year 1010. 1,000 years ago. And crowning the very top sits a single, colossal stone, said to weigh around 80 tons. How did they lift 80 tons of granite 60 meters into the air 1,000 years ago, with no cranes and no machines? We still aren't certain. The temple keeps its secrets. Quick pit stop. If your brain just went to wait, what? That's the subscribe button calling. Tap it, drop a like, and you genuinely help this little channel take on the algorithm. Got a theory or a favorite fact? The comments are right there, and I read every single one. Right, back into the rabbit hole. But Rajaraja's temple was just the foundation. Because his son was about to take the Chola name somewhere no Indian ruler had gone before. Out onto the open ocean. His name was Rajendra. And where his father conquered land, Rajendra dreamed of the water. He understood something the old empires had missed. Whoever controlled the sea, controlled the wealth of the world. Because across that ocean flowed the richest trade routes on earth. Silk and porcelain from China. Spices from the islands of Southeast Asia. Gold, gems, and horses. It all moved by sea, past the shores of southern India. And Rajendra built a navy powerful enough to control every drop of it. He marched his armies all the way north to the sacred river Ganges, a journey of over 1,000 miles, just to bring its holy water home in triumph. For that, he took a title that says everything about his ambition. Gangaikonda. The Chola who conquered the Ganges. But his most astonishing move was still to come. Somewhere across the Bay of Bengal lay a rival, a mighty maritime empire called Vijaya, based on the island of Sumatra, that controlled the vital straits between the oceans. And around the year 1025, Rajendra made a decision that stunned the ancient world. He would attack them. Not on land. Across the sea. He loaded an army onto hundreds of ships and sent them 1,000 miles over open water to strike a foreign empire on its own shores. An amphibious invasion of Southeast Asia launched from India. And it worked. The Chola fleet fell upon the ports of Srivijaya and shattered its grip on the seas. For a time, a Tamil emperor from southern India held sway over trade routes stretching from Arabia to China. It is one of the only moments in all of history when an Indian power projected its strength clear across the ocean. But the Cholas were not only warriors and sailors. Back home, they were building one of the most sophisticated societies of the medieval world. And some of what they did will genuinely surprise you. In a village called Uttaramara, carved into the stone walls of a temple, archaeologists found something remarkable. A detailed set of rules for elections. Who could stand for the village council? How long they served? How they could be removed for misconduct. A working local democracy, written in stone, over 1,000 years ago. And their artists reached a height that has never been surpassed. Using the ancient lost wax method, Chola craftsmen cast bronze statues of breathtaking grace. Above all, the Nataraja, the god Shiva, dancing the universe into being, ringed by a halo of cosmic fire. That single image, a dancing god in a circle of flame, has traveled the world. It stands in museums from London to New York. 1,000 years old, and still, somehow, perfectly alive. For 3 centuries, the Cholas ruled the waves and raised their temples to the sky. But no empire holds the sea forever. By the 13th century, rivals were rising, the navy was fading, and the great dynasty slowly slipped beneath the tide of history. And yet, stand in Tanjavur today, and Rajaraja's granite mountain is still there, still standing, still worshipped, after 1,000 years. The bronzes still dance. The election rules are still carved in the temple wall. The Cholas didn't just conquer the sea. They built things that outlasted the ocean itself. So remember them. The empire that looked at 1,000 miles of open water, and saw not a barrier, but a road. The Tamil kings who turned the Bay of Bengal into their own private lake, and left behind granite, bronze, and democracy that have lasted 1,000 years. And when those Chola ships crossed the ocean, they carried more than soldiers. They carried India's gods, art, and ideas out into the wider world. Which raises a strange and wonderful question. Why is the single largest Buddhist monument on Earth not in India at all, but on a volcano in Indonesia? That story is next.